Hi everyone. Okay, so today I'm gonna make a tutorial on blending exposures. We have 5 brackets here. I don't really want to use all 5. I just need to use 2. So I don't want to use this one. It's too bright. This one over here is your average shot. So I want this one for my interior. And then for the window pull, I'm probably gonna use this darkest layer here. So I'm just gonna blend those two. Okay, so I'm gonna drag this one in first and just cancel that. Drag this in, and okay, so this is still on default. So when you're shooting lights on, I don't really like lights on, especially for your when you're shooting no flash. So it gives you some issues like now we have an imbalance in kind of like this blue coming in here, and then we have this warmth area here. So if I want to fix the inside, like this section, I want to fix that, but then this section here where the window is, it's too blue. So that's why I don't really like with lights on. So what I'm gonna do is just try and get a balance in between. I'm actually gonna um, mostly try and correct this section here, because this section is going to be warm. So let me just fix this area here where the natural light is coming in, and I think something like that is fine. Now because of the strong warm colors from the lights, I'm gonna need to just go to my color mixer and just take down some orange and yellows. I think something like that is fine, and just want to make sure my exposure, oh, I do have a preset that takes highlights down and shadows to 75, um, more for the single ambience that we do, but I think it's even fine on here. So I'm just going to maybe just get that a bit lighter and then open. Okay, so now I need to go to my favorites. For those of you who don't know, your favorites, it's all of these windows here. If you don't want to go in and out of different windows all the time, then what you can do is just click on this pin here and then click onto your feature that you want to add to your favorites, and then click on the pin again to get out of the favorites mode, and then it should be at the bottom. You can just move it up with the arrows here, and when you do make a change to your favorites or even your any settings, click on the X here to save. There you go. And now I need to just add blend dark to my favorites. I don't think I had that there. Okay, there's it. I'm gonna need that. Okay, so now I do have a process here that we use on single ambient. um, First thing we're gonna do is restore shadows. There's your standard restore shadows. It targets the deeper shadows. It's on 50 by default. If you want to change that opacity for your default, then in your post process tools on your restore shadows setting, just click on the 3 dots, open the restore shadows options, and then you can just change this number here. The feather is on 300. There you go, that's your feather. If you play with it and you find a better setting, then you can just save it there and then click the X to save. So let's see what is a decent setting here. Okay, I'm just gonna make it 150. I'm not gonna change the default here because I think I prefer it on 300. Okay, so got some shadows lit up a bit just to even out the image a bit. Now what I want to do now is click the next step, so I kind of have it in the order that I want it to be. This is how I run through the images. Restore shadows reloaded. This will target more or less the entire image instead of just the deep shadows. It's kind of like a brighten as well. It's going to be too bright now, but I prefer having it a bit too strong, because then I'll just take this down a bit. And then I'm going to do auto lumen. Auto lumen is kind of like an auto contrast, auto brightness feature. So if it detects that image is a bit hazy or needs just a bit of contrast or brightness, then it's going to try and do that. It's not perfect, but it tries to find something. It's on 50 right now. I just want a bit in there like that, and then split frequency enhancer. So what this does is it adds kind of like, this is kind of like um, your finishing feature. So I have it set to still default settings. um, you might be wondering what are these layers here. So I think in that tutorial I need to have a tutorial for this feature alone, um, but for now you can just go through the settings. So you have your brightness, your overall brightness, your texture enhancer, color enhancer, and your luminosity enhancer. So if you're doing something on the color, just double click on this icon, and then if you increase this contrast, it adds more color. If you take it down, it takes out some color, so it removes, neutralizes some of that color. So I think in this image I'm just going to take it down a bit. And the texture enhancer is dealing with your just your textures, like your edges. So if you increase it, the contrast, it'll get sharper. And your luminosity, if you increase that, it's going to deal with your shadows and your highlights together. You can play with the brightness as well. If you take this lower, you'll see more detail comes back. And you can actually play with this brightness and with the overall brightness together. So you kind of like want to balance it out. So if I take this lower, it's bringing more detail in, and then I click on this brightness and then take it higher, then it kind of like has a different effect. So it's now more brighter, but bringing in more of that detail. So if I take this lower, take that higher, and you can just kind of get your own secret recipe here basically. And once you have something that you like, then just go over to your split frequency enhancer settings, and then your radius, this you can mess with a bit. Mostly I leave it on 5. There's some cases where I would use even 20 radius, which I will show you. That is for like when you have that glaze on the outside. But I don't use this feature. I just use the standard split frequency. But I'll make a tutorial on that as well. So if you have your settings that you like, you can start by a brightness contrast, and then just get your settings, just change that so it's 39, and then you make that 39. 10, that's still 10. Go to the next one, texture enhancer, so that would be 100, and then the color would still be, okay, that would be 20 minus 22, and then your luminosity, and that would be your luminosity settings over here, and you can just fill that in over here. And once you have the settings that you want, you can export that settings. So maybe you have a setting for your HDR, and then what you can do is export your settings, Then you select folder to export to. You can just export and then just make a new folder somewhere, maybe in your documents or something, and then make a new folder and name it HDR settings or something. And then you can always just swap over to different folders. So you might have a few folders, like you might have externals, you might have internals, you might have flash ambient, you might have HDR. So you can make you a few folders and just export your settings, and then just chop and change between your settings based on what you're doing. Okay, so let's get back to this image. um, I think that's fine. And then what we're gonna do is I want to bring in some window detail now. Now I just need the darker layer. So I'm selected on the split frequency enhancer, and the folder is closed. So now I'm just gonna drag this onto the image here. And on the dark image, I mostly just click auto and then bring down some highlights. Let's try this auto color, auto white balance, and see. Okay, that's a bit better. Maybe a bit more to the warm side. And maybe some whites just to brighten it a bit. I think that's okay to use. Let's click OK and then enter. And now what I want to do is go to my Expo blend. Okay, I did actually make a favorite for this, blend dark, and let me just check those, what's the settings. So I have blend dark feather is 500 and 100. Okay, it's mainly this is the feather that I'm just pondering about. Okay, so blend dark, and it brings in a bit of a flat look to the image, but we're going to mask this out only for certain areas. So but what I just want to adjust this mask a bit, so I feel we can bring in a bit more detail here in the window. So I'm selected on the mask, and while you are selected on it, click on this curves icon here. This is what I do at least, and then just raise this up to bring in more detail there. You can go higher, you can go a bit lower, just find somewhere where you're comfortable with. Click OK, and still looks a bit flat, but now I'm going to just add some brightness on the image itself. So I'm going to bring up this levels now, and I'm just going to brighten that a bit. Just brighten that up a bit. You can maybe raise this one as well a bit. Click OK, and that looks a bit better. But now we need to just click on this mask brush, and now just mask in only on these areas. I'm on 15% flow. I'm brushing with white and 100 opacity, and mode is normal of my paintbrush. So I'm just gonna fade in some window detail here. I don't like using the lasso tool, and in some cases it's kind of impossible to use it. So I always just wanna go with the blending. I'm just gonna click a few times here, just add a bit of that detail there. I might be making a bit shadow around the light footing, but I don't really see much right now. Let's see. There is a bit. We can maybe just brush with black around it, fade it out again. And we have now some window detail, and I brush on the floor a bit just to add a bit more detail there. You can still, if you feel that the image needs still some work, you can still adjust your split frequency with the brightness. Or the luminosity enhancer, maybe something there. yeah, just go according to your style. um, I don't know if this looks uh, good to you guys, but for I think for those two layers that I'm using, I think it came out decent. um, there's still some issues with it with the image. Maybe we could pull out some more color on the ceiling. You can use color range mask to do that. So when you click color range mask, just click onto the ceiling, click that side, click wherever you feel that you want to pull out some color. So I've got it selected there. You can play with the fuzziness, click OK, and then you can either brighten or lighten some of that. Feel like I'm washing out the image if I go too far. I'm just going to click OK. I don't really want to do anything here with the levels, so I'm just clicking OK. Now what you can do here is click on the hand tool and then just click on the ceiling and drag a bit to the left. Click and drag, click and drag, and you can pull out some color. I don't really like pulling out all of this color, but um, just showing you in case that's what you want to do. Then you just brush it out. And then if you somebody asked me if they sometimes you have this dark frames, maybe because of how you blended it. Oh, I actually forgot to brush some window detail in there, but that's fine. So I use color range mask as well to lighten up the frames here, because sometimes you might have that shadow here. And then you can click on color range mask, click on the frame, hold shift, click on the other side, just make sure you get the whole frame. You can take this down, the fuzziness down by a lot actually. You can see I have the frame there selected, and then click OK. And here you can maybe, is it this one? Yeah, I think you can just raise this a bit, just move it to the right, or you can use this one and move it to the left. But let's use this one. I like using this one. Click OK. You can maybe pull some of the color out. Click OK. Now just make your brush small enough and then just brush on the frame. You don't have to be too careful since we did use the color range mask. And there we go. Now that's not really my style, but um, that is just a request for this tutorial. Maybe next time, I think maybe next video I'll do is explaining all about the frequency, the split frequency, or you guys can request actually what tutorial do you want to see. Got our twilights that I think I would make a twilight video next. But yeah, I hope this tutorial was helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, just message me, and then I'll respond as soon as I can. Cheers.